Hey everybody, Patrick with Computer Wall here. So we're going to talk about should you repair or replace your computer. And this is actually one of the best times ever to consider actually repairing a computer versus replacing it. Some of you may already know that a lot of the parts have gone up, 15 to 20%, in large part because of the AI race right now. Basically, all of our consumer goods are being bought up to fund these giant data centers, and then we're left paying an extravagant price as a consumer for 16 gigs of RAM. So when it comes to computers right now, you're also going to see the price of them skyrocket in response to the parts going up like that. So right now is actually the best time to repair your computer versus replacing it. There are still some things we have to take into consideration, and at least here at Computer Wall, we don't consider compatibility as what the manufacturers tell us or what the programs necessarily tell us about what they're compatible with. One of the reasons for that is that some of that stuff is arbitrary limitations as basically a way for them to get you to buy new stuff. So how do we classify it here? Well, here's a really good example. Windows 11. So the truth is that a lot of older hardware can actually run Windows 11. However, there are points, if you go back far enough, where Windows 11 can actually not talk to the hardware. It doesn't speak the same language, primarily when it comes to processors. And so this right here is a real limitation. This is how we define something that's incompatible. We don't define it as incompatible just because they want you to have a TPM, active on your motherboard. For a regular consumer, that doesn't matter. Let's be honest. Your grandma does not care about that. My wife doesn't care about that. It's not something that's going to protect them in their everyday use, especially if you're just browsing Facebook or accessing your email. And so when it comes to replacing your computer, we look at, is it compatible with what you want to do? Does it have basic safety? Can it go up to Windows 11, or can it at least enroll in the extended security updates of Windows 10? If not, then it's time to replace it because it's too far behind. So compatibility is the first one. And compatibility is also relative to what you want to do on it. So for example, if you want to run, a super, maybe you're a graphic designer or a 3D designer and you want to run some CAD software or do some 3D design, if it's not compatible with that, obviously we're not going to repair that particular system. We're going to recommend a new one. The second part here that we have to talk about is when it comes to the actual cost of your current computer versus a new one. So if you have a computer that is super old, let's say, 10 years old, the hardware was not very good back then, and you bring it to me here, I'm going to tell you that even though this one could be upgraded, you're never going to reach a point with it where you would have a good experience. It might work, but it would not be an experience that we recommend per se. And so at that point, we're going to recommend just getting a new computer and getting your data transferred over to it instead of just telling you to repair it. And the reality is that some shops will just tell you to repair it because economically for them it will make them money. But that's not how we operate here at Computer Wall. The reason we are not a large franchise bound by a ton of rules is exactly for this reason. We want to be able to provide what's best for the consumer without having our hands tied. So let's go back to repairing a computer for a moment here. So there is a lot of computers that are probably within the 5-year range that you'll get that are super slow. And the really sad part about that is that they will often have old style hard drives. And this is the part that stores and retrieves your data. So if you save a picture, it's getting permanently stored on this piece of hardware. If you open a resume, it's coming from this piece of hardware. So the old style we used to use is like a record player. It's like a box with a spinning disc, and it reads and writes data that way. And as you can guess, that means it is super slow, they fail very often, and they are not durable at all. Like a small bump, bam, you're gone. And the sad part is that I'll get a lot of these computers where the rest of it is good. You'll have like a i5 8th generation Intel processor, and you'll have like 12 gigs of RAM. So it means that your computer is capable of going really fast and working really well, but it's being held back by this one part. And so when you have that situation, simply swapping it out for a solid state drive, and if you can, upgrading to Windows 11 in some cases, is by far the best way to go. Your computer for you will work exactly the way you need it to, regardless of what the recommendations you'll see online are. And so this is the way that we define should you repair or should you buy a new one here. Is it compatible with what you want to do? What is the cost of a new one versus this system? If this computer, to repair it, is going to cost more than half the cost of a new system, getting a new one's a good way to go. If your computer is not going to cost more than half a new system to get it repaired and working again, and it's going to work for exactly what you need it to work for, whether that's emails and Facebook, or whether you're doing 3D design and gaming, then obviously repairing it is a better idea if it's less than half the cost. So now let's talk about when you want to get a new computer versus repairing it. What are we going to look for? Well, the first thing we're going to do is avoid any of the $200 range computers that you're going to see at the big box stores. And I'll tell you why here. So the first thing you're going to see on a lot of these is 4 gigabytes of RAM. And 4 gigs of RAM is barely enough to run the operating system. So as soon as you open Google, Chrome, anything else, it's already coming to a halt. And if you do get Google Chrome open, as soon as you're going to open a few tabs, you're going to notice a significant slowdown. So that's number one you're going to watch out for. Next is the processor. So you're going to see a bunch of mumbo jumbo on processors, letters and stuff in there you don't understand. There is, however, 2 things you do want to look for, and some of them will have Intel processors. If it has an Intel, you have to make sure it is an i-level processor. i3, i5, i7, or i9 if you really want to go and just get a system that's super fast. And the reason for that is you're going to see like Pentiums and Celerons, and these are so slow in the first place that these are never going to be fast computers. Anytime somebody brings in a computer here and I see those kind of labels on it, I don't even advise them to repair it, because it would be really good for us financially, but for you that is an economic disaster. So look for at least 8 gigs of RAM, or avoid 4 at a minimum. Look for an i-series processor, or look for Ryzen if it's an AMD system. If it has Ryzen, it's usually going to be an okay system in the processor department as well. The next thing you want to look for is the storage on that device. And you're going to see ones that are like 128 gigabytes, sometimes 64 even. These are horrendously small drives in the first place. These will barely hold the operating system, and of course, even if they're Windows 11, we will probably reach a point where the operating system will fill up the entire drive or be unable to update because the update requires like 20 gigabytes, for example, to be able to do it. And the other thing is that these are often, or I should say almost all the time, soldered straight to the motherboard, and it's like basically the equivalent of a USB stick, which means that you can't swap it out. If you ever have to do data recovery, it's a nightmare for you. And of course, it means that it is too small in the first place to even be viable. I don't even know why. Well, I do know why they sell these, because they want to try and get you to buy something new, because your current computer can usually work just fine. So those are the ones we want you to avoid at the store. Is the $200 special that looks really fancy on the outside, less than 8 gigabytes of RAM, not an i-series processor, and usually a really small it'll be EMC or something like that. So you're going to see all kinds of labels that for you are not going to mean anything. So if it doesn't, just say a straight up SSD for solid state drive, I would avoid it as well, because it probably means it's soldered to the motherboard. Can't be replaced, it's slow in the first place. Now, what are we looking for in a computer that we actually would want to buy? So this comes down to a consumer class laptop versus a business class. Now, some people are afraid of refurbished laptops, and that's because they usually end up getting one, for example, from a pawn shop that comes from some random person and is a consumer class laptop in the first place. You bring it home, you open it up, the hinge snaps off, the processor's overheating because it's failing. So these are the kind of refurbished computers that get people skeptical about it. So what kind should you be looking for? And this is the sweet spot. So over here, I have a Lenovo T480S. Right off the bat, it's a nice computer. It's got an i5 8th generation, supports Windows 11 natively. It's got a nice screen here in the first place. The way it's built is to last, because the way these laptops usually come around is that they're leased out to business. And of course, these suppliers or manufacturers really want to impress the business because they're going to pay them tons to get them leased. And then after these come off lease for a business, often are sold off to other people, or we can get them. Thankfully, we have a supply of them here. And these meet all the features. So we have 16 gigabytes of RAM, so that's way more than the 4 that we talked about before. They have an i5 processor, so in the i series already. They have a solid-state drive in them. Now it's a 256 gigabyte, so it's not massive, but it's more than enough to support the operating system of what most people do. And it's an NVMe solid-state drive, so it means not only is it removable, it's fast in the first place. So that's what we look for. And of course, if you have further questions here, don't be afraid to text, call, or email us here at Computer Wall. We're happy to help you decide if the better route is to repair or to upgrade. We're located in Stony Plain here. You can walk into our shop anytime we're during our regular business hours. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks.